live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski. Clink.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. Steve Pulaski, Dominic Guanzon, and this thing live in living color. Oh, that is Joseph right there, aggressively blinking. He did not plan for how he was going to give me the countdown here, so it might have been a little off, but we're professionals. I can't even remotely try to be serious now. Joe, explain yourself and your newfound avatar friend over here.
I figure we're going to be reviewing Chip and Dale. I might as well get the CGI treatment myself and become like them.
That's a fair point. I love the creativity on this show, and I love how Joe can manipulate the settings of those things. So that was a pleasant surprise once we hopped into Zoom. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening on Sleepless with Steve, wherever you may be, however you may be listening, coast to coast in what is a broken country, to say the very least, too. It's very hard to be serious and try to make a serious point when there's a chipmunk of sorts on the screen here. I don't want to get on my soapbox really about what's happening because it's inescapable. Of course, I'm talking about the Uvalde shooting in Texas.
I'll just do this until then.
Oh, you didn't have to. It's fine. But I mean, yeah, so I think everybody today has been in like a glum mood. I don't know how it is back home. It looks like you guys actually did get sunlight. But
yeah.
It's been overcast out here today, and I just think it's like appropriate.
I had to take cover at work today because we had a tornado warning in Wheaton, and I had to take cover underneath a bathroom sink because it was reportedly going to touch down in our area. So that's the day I had, along with what happened yesterday as well. Like it has been a gloomy, like weird 24 hours.
Yeah, and I don't want to get on my soapbox too much about it, but I will say, like I said, this week has not been a great headspace for me. It's my late mother's birthday today. She would have been 59. So that already doesn't put me in the greatest state of mind as the first birthday she's not here to experience, number one. But then to have this whole thing that went down yesterday, and then like just the blowback that you see from it today. I hate to say it. I talked to a few people about it at work, and I said, I hate to have this attitude, but this is the attitude the country I live in has conditioned me. You know what? It's going to be somewhere else in 2 weeks.
Yep.
That's what it is. It's going to be somewhere else in 2 weeks, a city you never heard of, and it's going to be a city that's going to be permanently blackmarked by a tragedy like this. And I just fittingly finished the new George Carlin documentary on HBO Max. Great documentary, must watch. I just want to throw that out there. But I'll end with a quote from him because I hate to say it, and it's really a response. It's not of my own doing. It's part of my own cynicism, but it's also bred by a country led by cowards, led by spineless politicians and senators. I think Steve Kerr said a lot of this better than I could have. But to quote George Carlin, it's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. And just hope that the next time this happens, it's not a city in which you are or anybody you love is in. Because that's the end all be all of it. It sucks. I hope to see change. I don't expect change because I said a decade ago in high school, because I remember that story breaking, and I'm sure you guys do too, about Sandy Hook.
Yeah. It really sucks that
when Sandy Hook happened about 10 years exactly.
I don't know if he froze for you, Joe.
He did freeze for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
For the record, Joe doesn't know how to turn off that thing.
No. Hold on. If we're gonna talk about Sandy Hook and stuff, like, hold on a minute. Let me just go back to that.
Sorry about freezing there for a second.
No, you're good.
I'll just say, because it didn't reflect on my end, but I'll just say too, might be government interference, who knows? But no, I said 10 years ago, even in high school, I said if 27 kindergartners getting slaughtered inexplicably isn't going to prompt any sort of meaningful change, and this ain't going to be this, nothing's going to change this. It sucks. It's the reality though, and that's kind of where I'll open and where I'll leave it there.
It can't be said enough that when something of this magnitude strikes a town or a community, it just forever marks them as such. So Sandy Hook, you're never going to hear anything about good coming out of that town again, without also thinking, 20 grade schoolers just dead in one afternoon. I think, I guess you could be like Aurora, where it's like, oh yeah, Aurora, which shooting?
But they're
Aurora, Colorado.
Really. There's cities. Aurora, Illinois isn't defined by the shooting that happened a couple years ago.
That is true because the body count was too low.
The body count was too low, but it's also like Buffalo's not going to be defined by the shooting either. But like these towns, Columbine, like I can't imagine. I've thought about this too. Like going to school at Columbine High School, like that's gotta suck in some ways. That's gotta suck. Like I'm trying to think of like
working in the library in the Columbine High School.
I'm serious, man. And like now it's crazy because the teenagers that were in school at the time of the Columbine shooting are old enough now to have elementary school kids.
Yep.
Like, and still, and the first reaction to Columbine was we gotta ban Marilyn Manson. You know. No, it's sad. It really is sad. And it's also sad, too, when I said the Golden State Warriors basketball coach has better words than any politician.
I mean, dude, right?
Kerr's speech, man, that was great. What Steve Kerr came out and said yesterday.
I think Waco, Texas has only just reemerged. I mean, you still think about, well, maybe it's time's getting past us now on that, but, you still hear about the Waco siege where the ATF, had a standoff with that group of individuals, but I think it took the Fixer Upper show on HGTV to really upend the image of that town, and the Double Toasted podcast. That's what it took. We needed a hit podcast and a hit a renovation show to elude the stain of that for 30 years.
Corey Coleman saved Waco.
There you go. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, no, it's we'll move on from this shortly, I'm sure, but I've been of the opinion that in America, time has proven time and again that guns has been the same old routine over and over again, really. So I just move on beyond that and just go, hey, if you want to end mass shootings, particularly school shootings, you need to think beyond the box because it's a societal thing. It's a sociological thing. So yeah, you want to fix school shootings, enact universal health care. That way families are not pressured financially so that they can actually take care of their kids and they can actually spend time with them. That way they don't spend time by themselves and are raised by the internet or can't handle rejection from the other sex or the same sex or whatever, and they don't wind up shooting a whole classroom full of kids. And so yes, I am directly drawing a line from funding the post office, funding the universal health care, funding your local sewer lines or whatever, all that other stuff, just supporting social programs. That all leads to a better society, because the truth is, just guns alone, as Chicago has proven, where a majority of them are shootings are handguns. No amount of boogeymanning, high capacity with this or that assault, or rather automatic weapon, is going to fix that. So it's a comprehensive thing, and we're just going to get bogged down in the whole scary long gun better than scary short gun. But yeah, that's my whole thing on it. I'm sick of it, and and if you're thinking like, wow, he's really not shaken at all by this, I have been steeled and hardened. I went through grade school thinking grade school and high school, I had to grow up thinking, yeah, what if just random throughout the day. Yeah. What if someone just went into this room right now and just started shooting all of us? As an American, that is what I've had to grow up with.
I swear I haven't had this conversation with too many people, but my close friends, absolutely. Shout out to Siskel too for joining me. He knows I'm getting worked up. I've had this conversation before. I said, were you ever in school? Because now we're all out of school. Well, Joe's still technically in, but
we're at work now.
But we're in work now. But I said, I remember telling my friends, we all had this time. Like, you ever just be sitting in class and you're zoning out, math's boring or something one day, and you're just thinking, like, Jesus Christ, if you heard gunshots in the hallway right now, like, what the hell would you do,
dude?
Mm-hmm. I've had those.
Yep.
I've had those thoughts several times. Just like, what the hell would I do? Where would I go? Like, where's the safest nook in this room?
You always had the thing that's like, just turn off the light, lock the door, or whatever, and everything. It's just like you always thought to yourself, it's just like, is that always enough to stop a person and whatnot? It's just like. And again, it's just like, man, how would I be after a situation like that? How would I view everything. Like, coming out of an event like that and whatnot.
What
like,
we don't talk about is the PTSD that these kids
exactly.
We never talk about that. You want to talk
they
about
try and talk
health.
about it. They try and talk about it, and then we just shut them down, like just holistically, just yeet them out of the conversation.
The only real experience that I have to draw on, or at least somebody, I don't even know her, I'm just friends with her on Facebook. There's an actress, her name is Tiffany Shepis. She's a popular it seems derogatory to say, but a popular B-movie horror actress. Her daughter was shot in a school shooting a couple years ago in California, and her daughter is a huge school safety and gun control activist, and she's like younger than far younger than, I think she's like 18, 19. And she's always at these events. She spoke she spoke at a rally with Biden somewhat recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's Tiffany Shepis' daughter. And that was a big thing. I remember the day it happened. I can't even remember. It's terrible. I can't remember the school. It's been so damn many. But I remember the day it happened, and Tiffany Shepis is my daughter's at this school, and her daughter was shot, I think, in the ankle. I know she was shot. And that's wild, but they don't talk about these kids, man, after the fact. Wow. And like I said, the stuff that you read today is horrifying. It really is. It's terrible. I mean, I don't know if you guys have gotten to see the Onion's website today.
I haven't.
That famous article.
The Onion replaced every story on the front page of their site with "No way to prevent this," says in the only nation where this regularly happens. And the only difference of the article was the different cities, the whole front page.
Uh-huh. One of my favorites. I love the Onion, particularly their YouTube series from 2008 to 2013 there or so. But that article in particular, it hits. And there is a whole tragedy entertainment complex specifically around America's phenomenon of continuous and very highly frequent mass shootings and school shootings. There is a playbook that us, media heads, politicians, that we all generally follow, and it's getting real damn hard to be creative, with your words about the same thing over and over again. So yeah, it's Groundhog Day up in this bitch.
It is. That's exactly what it feels like. The last thing I'll say too is, again, I can't recommend that George Carlin documentary enough. George Carlin's American Dream is now on HBO Max. Really good. The second part especially. And they talk about when he evolved into more of a philosophical, or a philosopher type comedian, and his observant look at the world and stuff, and his commentary. And it's scary. I mean, his clips still circulate regularly on the internet when something like this happens. I remember the germs routine he did was popular during the early days of COVID. And even still now, it's a great bit. But they had a clip in this thing when they were showing a montage. They were actually showing a montage of mass shooting, images from mass shootings, and then it ends with Carlin saying, they want to ban the toy guns, but they want to keep the fucking real ones. And it's scary how much of that is still totally relevant, especially his best piece, his best bit, what is always going to be the government bit is the bit about you don't have rulers, you have owners, they own you. That whole 7-minute spiel. It's a big club and you ain't in it. That's still to date Carlin's best bit, in my opinion. But moreover, though, we'll talk movies. We're better at talking movies than we are talking social issues. Well, Dom might be better talking social issues than movie than
you got some poignant words yourself, my friend.
But we'll move forward like we try to do every time. Might as well segue again. This is the show of amazing segs. We're talking Chippendale Rescue Rangers today. At least get lighthearted in here. There's a lot of smiles watching this thing. We could all use that now. It's on Disney Plus, which I kind of would have liked to see this thing go to theaters. I think this thing could have done well. A lot of stuff that comes on Disney Plus, I feel like Disney could still do pretty well with. And I'm not saying this one would have made $500 million, but I do think this thing could have been a pretty decent hit, all things considered. I at least think it would have made back its budget, which was about $70 million. But anyway, this is technically 2/3 of The Lonely Island are responsible for this. They didn't write it, but Akiva Schaffer directed it. Andy Samberg's the voice in it. He voices Dale. and John Mulaney voices Chip. John Mulaney's very good as Chip. I didn't think Yorma Taccone was in this, but he actually is. He has one voice credit in this movie, and he's Batman.
Really?
He was working on the MacGruber TV series. That's why he wasn't in it more. That's why he wasn't in it. He wanted to be. He wanted to be in it, but he had prior obligations. That's why Taccone's not featured much in it.
I love the MacGruber movie. It's rough around the edges, but my God, there are hilarious.
There's moments that I laugh my ass off in that movie.
Hard laugh, like I'm not gonna. We're gonna focus on Chip and Dale. I could go on about MacGruber. Sorry.
Oh, please don't. But Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, based off the TV series. I'll start by saying this. First things first. I never watched Chip and Dale. I never watched the show. I never watched it, and I think but I do think this is the perfect candidate for something to reboot. And it's not, and I love the slogan of this, or the tagline of this thing is it's not a reboot, it's a comeback. But but at the same time, though, Chip and Dale is like the ideal thing to reboot in this climate, because there's not a ton of nostalgia attached to those characters. There's not a ton where people are going to say you ruined my childhood if you do Chip and Dale a little bit differently, as evidenced by how well this thing has been received. You don't have that aspect of it. It's a loose enough, you can be disloyal enough to the brand that you can hire good writers like these two, Dan Greger and Doug Mann, to kind of take their own spin on the characters and the property as well. And again, too, like, you're not competing with a classic, like remaking The Lion King's a losing battle outside of money in an artistic sense. Remaking The Lion King is foolish. Remaking Jungle Book is kind of foolish in and of itself. You're better off to go for something like this that doesn't have a lot of fanfare attached to it. And I think it's pretty good. I think this movie, first things first, I think this is what Space Jam 2 wanted to be. This is the superior version of Space Jam 2, rather.
And that's its fatal flaw, is that it wanted to be Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers when it had no business being being anything multiverse whatsoever.
That I can agree on, but I will say somebody's got to give credit to Gregor Mann and Akiva Schaffer. Somehow they convinced Disney to let them raid their serververse. That's just what I'm going to call it. Raid their serververse and mine for all their characters and make one big critique about how there's nothing but soulless Hollywood blockbusters these days. So I have to give the meta element credit to it. Because if you know The Lonely Island, you're familiar with Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. You're familiar with their kind of brand of satire too, and there's a lot of it in here with Chip and Dale, as evidence too, based on the fact that when Chip and Dale inevitably go their separate ways in the beginning, only to reunite, Dale gets the CGI reconstructive surgery, whatever it's called, the CGI surgery to make him more fit for modern roles, while Chip is still the original 2D animated, classically animated character. So you can already see the direction it goes in on that alone. There's a lot to like about this. It's not flawless. It isn't. It's got the same problem a lot of animated movies nowadays do, and I kind of feel like I'm being redundant in mentioning it. I'll get into it later. What say you about Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Dom?
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers is the sequel to Roger Rabbit that we never got. You're going to see a lot of comparisons, and they're all apt, because Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers has the heart of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but with with updated, of course, looks, but also updated wit, updated this and that, and all the edge.
You are right. I never thought about it like that. I'm actually like literally playing like Roger Rabbit in my head and scene by scene, just going back to Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. You're actually right.
And for Roger Rabbit, it's a more earnest. It's L.A. Confidential, but with cartoon characters interacting with the real ones, the real humans. Whereas Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers it's ultra meta, to the point where it almost hurts, but they managed to actually pull it off actually really effectively, on like every level possible. This is more than a 3-layer cake. This is definitely one of those, like Roger Rabbit. You're gonna go back watching this over and over again, if anything, just for like this scene, that scene, like that background gag or whatever, much like a Lego movie or what have you. But how this movie deals with the legacy of its own characters, the legacy of how this movie interacts with everything else around it, contextually within the industry with things like, in a post Avengers Endgame, post Multiverse of Madness, in a post, Space Jam 2, in a post
Ready Player One.
Yes, thank you. That was the one I was looking for. We're in a post Ready Player One. We're really doing this again, but this movie effectively makes you look back at all of those other ones which had very, very varying degrees of success, and will make you go back and look, how did these guys get this right? And to that, you have to, not perfectly, but I believe solidly, they got it right. And for that, the writers here are not going to get enough credit. And in fact, I did not do enough research on Dan Greger and Doug Mand. I think, Steve, I don't know if you know those names too well yourself, but
they both don't even have Wikipedia articles.
Shocking. I noticed that too. But regardless, what we can go to easily is, of course, The Lonely Island touches here, as well as John Mulaney and a lot of other things in orbit. Because originally, this movie was just going to be, it looked like it was going to be Alvin and the Chipmunks-esque, where it's like, yeah, origin story, reboot, and like just straight, 100%. But when that fell through, apparently in May 2019, Akiva Schaffer had closed a deal to replace the original writer to replace the original director, while they brought in Dan Greger and Doug Mand as new writers. So if anything, this was saved 100%, where it's like, no. This is, we know what this is going to be. Let's just screw with it and have fun now and do something extra. And they, at the heart of it, we're definitely, I want to touch on a number of critiques, but at the heart of it, they got it right. And I'm so happy for it.
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I used to watch Rescue Rangers every once in a while on Disney Channel. It was one of those like weird Saturday morning things, part of the Disney afternoon lineup or whatever, or the Disney whatever. I was more of a Darkwing Duck guy. So like, it's just like, because I loved Batman growing up. So of course a duck that's Batman was like, I fuck with that. All right. But for this movie, I mean, when I first saw the trailer and I saw how meta they were going to get with it, to the point where they had literally Seth Rogen playing one of those animated characters from like the Polar Express or like those discount like animated movies where like their eyes don't move, they're just looking straight ahead, and they were making fun out of that. I was like, all right, they might have something here. And then when the second trailer came out and it just was more doubling down on that, I was like, I am so looking forward to this. This honestly looks like it's going to be like probably Disney Plus's like gem of it's of the year. Like, it's just like no one really expected this thing really to do this well. And after seeing social media blow up about this movie, yeah, it's safe to say, yeah, it very much did, and it's rightfully deserved. I had a fun time watching this movie. I wasn't laughing at every joke they did. In fact, the comedy to me in this movie is hit or miss a lot of times. But the tone of the movie that it keeps, and the story, and just like Andy Samberg and John Mulaney's voice acting kept this so fun and energetic that like if I wasn't laughing at a joke, I honestly was just like, I'm just having fun being part of this ride in this world, and I'm loving the meta like comments you guys are making here and there. Like the whole thing about that cartoon characters from like old properties like The Little Mermaid are being kidnapped and being re-edited so they can be part of like those Asylum animated movies that go direct to Redbox or Walmart bargain bins. I was like, that is hilarious, man.
That's an ingenious little plot for this.
Like, the fact too that like the Peter Pan character in this movie, voiced by Will Arnett, even talks about what actually happened to the real Peter Pan actor in some ways. I was just like, this is they're just doubling down and like touching on everything, and hats off to them. Dom was basically touching on this, and so was Steve. But hats off to everybody involved, knowing when to pull back on the references and everything throughout this movie. Near the end of the movie, it started getting a little too pushy, but I was like letting it slide because it's like, okay, we're getting to the climax. But like, I was worried like throughout. It's like, okay, like how many times we're gonna do it? But anytime it pops up, it's so weird of a combination, like E.T. versus Batman, that I'm just like, Okay. Or Dobby from Harry Potter as a Gucci model. And like
Butthead as a senator.
And you're probably thinking like, oh, don't spoil so many of them. No, trust me, there's one at the beginning of the movie that social media, like, to me, has been ruining. And if you don't know about it, I would try to keep avoiding it as much as possible, because
I don't want to talk about that one. I know which one you're talking about.
It opens up with, I think, the best gag of the movie. I was in tears because it caught me off guard, and I'm glad I watched this Friday like afternoon, like during my lunch break, and got to see that before, like, when I got home, opened Twitter, and it was just all over my timeline.
It's timely, it's prescient, and it's really modern, and also like that joke. It's not one-off. They revisit it multiple times, and it's actually integral to the plot somehow.
I just want to say, the last thing I'll say is shout out to Moving Picture Company, the animation studio behind the character, who was very good sports and let Akiva Schaffer at Disney use it.
Really, looking towards the animation, this is I think, I don't want to say a technical feat in animation, just because, I mean, it is very impressive how they were able to blend all of these styles. But I think I'm going to defer to animators to really make the judgment call on that. But in terms of like how they handled all of this effectively, is really, really impressive. So in one particular scene early on, there is a stop motion claymation character sharing a scene with Chip's 2D quasi 2D animation and Dale's CGI vomit, concertedly, like that's part of the joke, CGI vomit animation. And then also a sock puppet all at once in the same frame. And that's when it hit me. It's like, there were hints earlier at this, but that's when like popped in my mind. Okay, buckle in, buckle up. This movie knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
And it did. Again, execution. I would love to get into some critiques after the break, but actually, the first time this movie entered my mind was when you guys showed me the poster, and it's like, hey, check out this poster. It's like Chip's 2D and Dale's 3D, and I'm like, okay, stop. I'm gonna not think about this until I watch it, because that tells me so much about where they're going with this. I didn't even know about, Akiva Schaffer and all that until actually just a couple days before.
I remember, I did post the poster. I'm like, have you seen this? Like, they're like, they do this, and you were like, that's all I need to see.
Yep, it was so like that.
So,
100%, and like, they're smart about it too in their writing, because they keep it very much Chip and Dale.
Yeah.
Like the other members of the Rescue Rangers, they're there at pivotal points. Some great gags with those members, including
the Fly.
Actually, all the rest of the Rescue Rangers, they do some great things with them. But it's like at the heart of it, it is very much Chip's emotional journey, dealing with how Dale, how the two of them, how they actually interacted back in the 80s and 90s. This film, if you were a kid who watched the Disney Renaissance happen before you, and then as a teenager watched Goof Troop, like emotionally like inform you as a teenager, and the Goofy movies, and then you became an adult, this movie, you're mandated to watch this movie essentially, and just to see how you deal with it, in my opinion, because this really was meant for you. I wasn't so much in that Disney afternoon, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, a lot of ducks, but it's really meant for you. So you, in that sense, you got to see it. But how they handle that in where we are just drowning in nostalgia to the point where we are just dying from it, this handled it very effectively.
Yeah, I'm honestly hoping, be careful what you wish for, because we'll probably sooner or later get it, as you said, with as far as the nostalgia train is. I really wanted that Nicktoons movie to come to fruition that they kept talking about for years, that they still haven't done. They've talked about it for a long time.
I've never heard of this.
9 years or so. It's never been concretized, like exactly. Like there's never been, I don't think there's ever really been like a director attached or like an official screenwriter or anything, but it's basically going to be the Nickelodeon version of this thing. I don't know the characters they focus on, but it would be like bringing in the Rugrats and bringing in the Angry Beavers and Real Monsters and all these characters, Chalk Zone and everything all together, like the early 90s to like mid 2000s animated characters. It was going to be a movie called Nicktoons. And I've always wanted to see that come to fruition. But I mean, if you're a Disney kid, because I really wasn't, outside of Recess and The Weekenders, I really wasn't. I also like Fillmore too, and Fillmore doesn't get a lot of love. But I was always more of a Nickelodeon kid, but still something like this still is heartwarming, but it's most meaningful if you grew up with these characters.
Damn, I would love to see that, but with Cartoon Network, because like I grew up more with Cartoon Network, and like I think that cast of characters is so awesome and everything.
Adult Swim is technically doing that potentially through like one of their April Fool's joke, but more so that's more just so Adult Swim specifically. Yeah, dude, it's man, and like in video games we had the multiverses where like a beta came out. Joe knows what I'm talking about. Steve, it's a fighting game where Arya Stark can beat up Shaggy.
It's all WB fighters basically.
Yeah,
or W Smash Bros.
Right, essentially. And it's, and it's looking good there. So if anything, we're coming into a situation here, particularly in 2022, where this multiverse idea is actually becoming refined to a degree. People are still screwing it up, don't get me wrong.
We're going to get our Space Jam 2s every once in a while. We're going to get the Ready Player Ones that don't know how to handle it. But every once in a while, yeah, we'll get what Dom is saying, a multiverses video game like that, or even a movie like this.
But this is why it's so important too. And I think people are finally catching on to this. And I think the Marvel fatigue is caught up in this way with people. The reason Chip and Dale, it's not perfect. Nobody's saying it is. But like, we're not, at least. It's not a perfect movie, but the reason it's a good movie, one of the big reasons I say, is that it has a damn vision behind it. It doesn't feel like this thing was cobbled together by 45 writers or 20 producers who are producing the movie and writing it simultaneously and doing more producing than writing. This has a vision to it. It might be kind of a manic and crowded vision at times, like a lot of, that's really, I still say, and maybe it's just the attention span of kids nowadays trying to keep up with them. But that's the crowning problem, I think, with a lot of animated movies these days. Even the Mitchells versus the Machines, as great as that was one of the problems with that one, too. The Lego movie, how great that movie was. The problem with these movies is they just get too busy. Yeah. They just get too manic, and then it prompts, I think, mostly the older viewers like us and maybe the parents. You start to experience like those 2-3 minute laps where you're kind of just staring and not watching. You know what I'm talking about. You're staring and not watching. You're not.
I did that a couple times.
As much as like the Lego movie was like one of my favorite animated movies of that year, and the same with Mitchells versus the Machines. I do like it when an animated movie can stop and just breathe for a minute, because like, yeah, this movie is, if I have to agree, like when I said like the comedy wasn't like, it was hit or miss most of the time for me, that's because, yeah, it's firing a joke like almost every 10 seconds. And it's like, guys, you don't need to do that. Like, let me take it. Like, I'm already appreciating like the meta-ness you guys have here and the plot you guys have come up with and everything, and how creative like you're doing it here, that like you could pull a few jokes out and just let this play out, and like, it'll be a stronger film in my opinion.
Let's take a break here. I want to say something about the cinematography too. I know that's kind of weird to bring up here, but I think it goes hand in hand just with the animation techniques. There's one big point, because there's another movie that merged animation and live action together fairly recently that adopted a very similar style, and that was about the only thing that movie had going for it, in my opinion. This movie does it way better, and it's striking in some ways how similar these movies look. I want to dive into that after the break, and we also got some box office news to talk about as well. It is Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, taking our short Zoom-sponsored intermission. Maybe Joe will bring back the chipmunk or whatever that thing was. We shall see. Time will tell. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. It's Sleepless with Steve. We are back and better than ever on Sleepless with Steve. We got this trending down, or we got this signal down because Joe can't move his arms when he's in bear form. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We're talking Chippendale Rescue Rangers here. Joe's doing his best impression of the cute version of the polar bear from Coke. Let me say this. I should have looked this up briefly during the Zoom-sponsored intermission. But this movie looks great, this Chippendale Rescue Rangers. This movie looks really good. And one of the reasons I think it looks so good is the cinematography by Larry Fong. Larry Fong has done a lot of cinematography for big movies, too, like Kong Skull Island he did, now Batman vs. Superman, Now You See Me, even Super 8. You know what this reminded me a ton of, though, the look of this movie? Maybe you guys know where I'm going with this movie has kind of a detective film noir look to it, and it really, like, you know, it's got those like inky blacks and those teals and like the, you know, the shadowiness, because it is kind of a detective story at its heart. It reminded me a lot of Detective Pikachu in look. Reminded me a lot of Detective Pikachu.
I thought you were gonna bring up Tom and Jerry, but yeah, no, Detective Pikachu.
No, this thing doesn't remind me at all of Tom and Jerry. You know, outside of the fact that it features animated characters interacting with humans. But yeah, this thing reminded me a lot of Detective Pikachu in look, but that was about the only thing Detective Pikachu had going for it, in my opinion, was that it looked good. The animation was pretty cool and stuff, and it had like a nice film noir sort of ambiance to it. This thing does too, and it's a big credit to Larry Fong. I was kind of crossing fingers that that the same cinematographer worked on Detective Pikachu. He did, and that was John Matheson. But I had to fact check that because I was gonna blow my own high if that happened to be the case. But no, I think this movie looks great. I think truly this thing looks really good. And even though Chip and Dale for most of the movie are different styles of animation, that didn't feel jarring at all to me for how much they interacted.
On a technical level, they were actually able to get it right. Dale does look to me like color vomit, but I can tolerate it. One, because it's clever. They actually incorporate it. And kudos to them. They stick with it. Like apparently in the world this world that they live in, it's plastic surgery. So kudos. I support body positivity. So Dale, good work.
Less ambitious filmmakers might have had him get reverted back to his 2-day.
I was waiting for it.
I kept waiting for it too, and then about a half hour in, I was just thinking no, they're really going to keep him looking like this, and that's kind of funny.
It is kind of funny. Yeah, dude, it's impressive. Because cinematography, everyone forgets that in animation. Me too, most of the time. But for everything else this movie had going with it, it was actually a pleasure to look at. Not just at the things on the screen, but how it's presented. Dude, how did they get some of the properties that they got in here? Because when I first noticed it, oh, okay, cool, they're flexing how they bought Fox Studios. No, wait a second, hold on, wait, no, they have Batman in here. How did that happen? How is E.T. what?
Yeah,
and it's they actually impressed me with the things they were shoving into this movie. And apparently it was as simple as we just had to make deals with them and make sure that they were positively shown in the movie. Some wheeling and dealing, so that's the politics of it.
I guess again, because it was how did Roger Rabbit get Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny in the same frame at one point, and the battle that took. So I imagine this just nowadays, I feel like back then it was crazy to think of something like that because studios wanted to keep everything in bounds. Nowadays, I mean, we've kind of been highlighting this over the review, but so many people are just hey, we see the value of sharing an image or a character to something just for a cameo. Whether it be just a 2-second clip with Batman fighting E.T., or literally having a character from Paramount Studios popping up throughout the movie. It's just that's insane that it was able to they were able to do it. And I think just nowadays studios may see just more of a benefit from that and just be hey, look, this can cause I also attribute social media to it because it's look what was trending over the weekend when it came to this movie, and look what also came out over the weekend on Paramount Plus. And it was just you knew they were okay, now that he's trending, let's throw the movie out there.
Yeah, and the editing here is you can tell the Lonely Island has their hands all over this.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
smash cuts. Oh, that is, dude. Go back and watch Hot Rod, which is a gem of a movie. It's so flawed, but it's so good. In my heart. But some of those smash cuts right in line with Hot Rod, what they did here with Chippendale, and it's one of their signature things. But among many others, it's just the fact Steve hit it right on the head. It's the fact that someone cared, and that whoever was in charge of getting this made, production wise, they knew to leave it to the professionals, or at least leave it to someone who would care. And that's really what put this over the edge, because you can throw however much money and however many tools and properties at someone, but Lord knows they're not necessarily going to make something. It's not guaranteed. I could keep going on and on about this, but I think we do want to pivot to the end here. Who Framed Roger Rabbit to me is right, Steve, we do want to move along. If there's anything else, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit to me is required viewing. That is a 4 out of 4 stars, and I'm going to be lenient here. This is nothing less in my mind than a 3.5 star movie, just because and that's heavily contextual as well, just because where we are when you put it with something like Tom and Jerry, Space Jam, and all the other things where people just aren't getting it right. It is a breath of fresh air industry wise to know that this can be done, and it can be done well, and it's a trend that's going to keep happening no matter what. So at least let's make sure it can be accomplished. The animation on some things, like even the 2D animation, it was a little rough around the edges.
Peter Pan definitely had a rougher look than
most
people.
Yeah, he did.
It was like rotoscoped almost.
Yeah.
Like. I don't know. I don't know the behind the scenes exactly, but it felt like half rotoscope, half 2D. Whereas in Roger Rabbit, they actually went all the way, where it's like, no, this is like cell. Like, we are drawing every frame of this like old school, like the 40s.
Yeah.
But I kind of understand that it's 2022 and we don't have the patience and money to do that anymore on the production, on the studio level. And I'm sure if they would, they could, or they would. But it is what it is. 3.5 out of 4 stars for me, for something that I have a feeling will quickly be forgotten about. But I hope at the very least it will become a cult following, and the right people will learn the right lessons from this thing.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I think it's probably going to wind up being a little bit like forgotten, just because Chip and Dale on their own are not huge property. It's not a huge property. It's not a huge IP. No less, it's a 3 out of 4 star movie from me. I had a ton of fun watching this. I also think too, it maybe feels a little bit longer than it is, just because it gets so manic, but I think it's the perfect length. I do think that it is optimal length. It's fairly in and out. And again, I go back, there's some great voice work from Mulaney and Sandberg. So it's 3 out of 4 stars from me. Joe, you can send us home on this one.
It is. It's 3 out of 4 stars for me as well. I think Dom, like that whole thing he said at the end, it's true. It's like, I'm hoping that studios look at this and get the right idea of, hey, this is how we need to what was I gonna say? This is how we need to basically take and handle like an idea like this, so that we don't get another Space Jam 2, or God forbid a Tom and Jerry. Like, my God, when they did the whole like, why the hell do they always make animals rap in these movies? I was just like, thank you, somebody.
And the
said
rap
it.
itself, I was like, wait, they're probably gonna drop some bars. No, the rap is awkward the whole time, and I love it. I was laughing so hard how they just. It's like how I rap. It's like, I can't let go of this one rhyme because I'm not a rapper. I was never meant to rap.
It's just way funnier too. It's just like, it's like, dude, like, there's no way Chip and Dale like would get so hip and cool they just start rapping. Okay, no one would be able to pull that off. I had a fun time with this. I love what they did with it. Hats off to the screenwriter, the director, and of course Mulaney and Sandberg's voice talent here, which I think all three of them come together and they really carry this film through some of its weakest moments and make something good out of it. So 3 out of 4 stars.
Much in the way when we see a Jackass movie come out, we are pining for the 0.5, the behind the scenes movie. I would love a 5-hour documentary on this movie. because I love watching the behind the scenes on Roger Rabbit almost sometimes more than the actual things themselves.
Yeah.
But,
I want them to do that because, on Disney Plus, if you go on there, they constantly have, like, this is, like, like, how each episode of The Mandalorian was made. How each, and then they have, like, the collections of, like, oh, here's how we did the whole season of WandaVision. It's like, dude, please do that for this because, like, this would be great.
Do they have that already?
For Chip and Dale?
Yeah.
No, they don't. I would love if they made it. Because I would love to know, like, hey, how did you negotiate to get, like, some characters to pop up? What was the idea? Like, like, one of the best sight gags in this movie is there's a literal animation vault of, like, where they keep, like, character pieces and everything to use.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is such a clever, like, nod to, like, old school animation, but, like, a funny way to, like, put it into the plot of the movie. But, yeah, no, I would love to see a documentary thing like they've been doing with the TV shows on Disney Plus, but with this movie.
We'll transition, but like the tricky thing I think would be that all the behind the scenes for Roger Rabbit are all on a technical level, which makes sense because it's a highly technical movie and it's so impressive. But for this, it's really more of a political thing, and by political I mean like studios talking to each other, writers, the change of hands between visions and stuff. So that might be a little harder to document and show. And if people even want to talk about that might make the wrong people look bad or whatever. So egos get in the way. But yeah, dude, it's I can't wait to watch this movie again and to just know more how it was made.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I think we did a good job with the review on that one too. So great job making us aware of it, Joe. At least you made me aware of it because it flew under my radar, admittedly.
I mean, shit, we're gonna go watch this week.
I'm like, that's perfect. I was thinking though for a while though, I would have I was
I forgot Men came out. My bad.
After I saw Men, I was just thinking like, man, that would have been a really good one to discuss. But I'm like, I did have a lot of fun discussing this one. I still haven't had time. I've been busy. I haven't written the review of it yet. But I am going to get on that. But we will segue to this. Don't have to take a ton of time to talk about this, but it's worth mentioning that Everything Everywhere All at Once has held very impressively at the box office. Hugely positive word of mouth has really benefited this movie. And you can tell how, like, there's an average of 2 movies that come out in America every week. So movies are in and out faster than they've ever been, and they go on digital faster than they've ever been. But when a movie sticks around, like, that says something. Everything Everywhere All at Once has been in theaters for now, what almost 2 months? Or has it been like about a month and a half or so?
It's been 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say. It's been sticking around quite admirably, and it's got another box office record under its belt. That is now the highest grossing A24 movie in America at $53.3 million. Now, to give you perspective, and looking at this big list, I'm on the hyphennumbers.com. I love this site. This is like the better box office mojo now, ever since IMDb bought Box Office Mojo. This is the better version. Just to let you know, like A24, they're obviously lucrative. They make money. Their movies don't cost a lot. But to give you perspective, if you look at the top 20 of their highest grossing movies, you know what the 20th you're not going to know what the 20th movie is. Even I haven't heard of it, admittedly. You know what the 21st movie is on that list? X.
Oh, wow. Oh.
So that just goes to show you that a lot of their movies, like, they don't always make a killing. Swiss Army Man, the Daniels' previous movie, that's 31 on the list with 5.8 million.
I was going to say, I don't think I even cracked double digits there.
No, it didn't. Once you get into like the 24th movie is when you're like 9 million and below. So that just gives you perspective. Like, they're still waiting for their first movie to make over $100 million globally. Any guesses on what the highest grossing A24 movie is worldwide? Any guesses? You each get one.
I'm going to guess Lady Bird.
Oh, he's close. That's number 2 at 78.9 million. Dom, any guesses? It's a horror movie.
The Lobster. Oh, I don't know.
It Comes at Night?
No.
Hereditary.
Hereditary.
Yeah, that makes sense. I said
one guess, but I gave it to him eventually.
Sorry.
No, don't worry about it. Hereditary, 81.2 million is their highest grossing movie worldwide. Their top 5 in this order worldwide: Hereditary, Lady Bird, Moonlight, Everything Everywhere, Uncut Gems.
Where's Midsummer? Is that like 6 or 7?
Midsummer 6th. Rounding out the top 10, you got Midsummer, you got The Witch, Ex Machina, Room impressively is on there too, the Brie Larson movie. That's top 10. And number 10, it's so hard to quantify because these are all excellent movies. Number 10 is one of my top 5 favorite A24 movies. It's Spring Breakers. And that thing somehow legged its way to 31 million and pissed a lot of people off in the process. But yeah, so like looking at their list though, they make a lot of great movies, but a lot of their movies, they don't make a lot of money. You know what I mean? They're real, like, and we kind of have an inflated sense. They're a extremely successful studio, don't get me wrong. But like we have an inflated sense of like how big they are because like our echo chamber is so dense when it comes to A24. But this is a huge hit for them. And I was even skeptical when it came, because they did promote this movie quite a bit, this Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I remember saying, I don't know if it was on this show, but I remember telling somebody somewhere that like if Everything Everywhere All at Once isn't a hit for A24, then it kind of puts into question their business as like a promotional, like a distributor that can promote and market. I said this is kind of a test of whether or not they can like really leg out a big hit, which really, to be fair, no household names. Michelle Yeoh is great, but Michelle Yeoh I don't think is a household name. She's a household name to movie fans, but not a household name in the larger stretch. But Everything Everywhere All at Once now, it could still pass Hereditary. It could at least come close. It could at least get to the top 3. Previously, the highest grossing A24 movie in America was Uncut Gems, which again also had the benefit of being Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
That helped it out a lot too, and a lot of people wanted to see Adam Sandler go nuts, and that was fine because they were treated to an excellent film either way. But I'm really happy to see this movie do as well as it's been, because it's been, I always said, it's always great when great movies make money. And 15 years ago, this being a hit wouldn't be a story, but given the landscape that we're in now with movies, it really does feel like a big win for originality and 2 very unique and young filmmakers who came with something original, not perfect, but deeply original and very heartfelt. Dom, I know you did miss Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I'll seg to Joe and I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, man, this was a treat to see, because like, when we reviewed the film, you and I, like, we said, like, hey, this is, like, it's great, and we want it to do good, like, because we were saying how, like, oh, we have the film buffs out there saying it's the best movie of all time and all this stuff, and I think one of us made a comment going, you know what that always does? It makes people go see the movie, and then they come out of it, and they go, well, what the hell was that? I don't get any of that. Complete opposite effect here, and I couldn't be happier. So maybe the film like buffs on Twitter and film bros were right. Like, I guess this is like one of the best movies of the year because, yeah, man, it's getting mainstream audiences. Like, I have like a ton of my friends being like, dude, is that playing anywhere? I want to go see that. Like, and I told them, like, you should. It's a great movie, and I would love to see if more movies by A24 were on this level. Like, because typically when we get an A24 movie, A24, like, they distribute a lot of horror films most of the time, a lot of horror, like, dark thriller stuff.
Looking at this list, they have a lot of horror movies.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking last year was 2019. In 2019, when they did, like, Uncut Gems, I was like, man, that's a lot different than what they usually do, and I'm glad that was successful for them. This is, like, their first big sci-fi action film, and it was a hell of a good time. So, yeah, I was happy to see that happen, especially for Michelle Yeoh, who, was in interviews saying how much this role really meant to her. I hope this helps her land more roles that are not the typical thing that she was getting, that she said in the interview. But yeah, I was very happy about this. Congrats to the Daniels and everybody else involved. This is a big thing to hit, and I can't wait till eventually, A24 does get its $100 million global, or hell, I'll even take domestic box office hit.
What say you, D?
Yeah, so I don't have too much to say because I still need to watch this movie, and I have seen and heard everything about this movie except the movie itself. And still, even I know that, yeah, this is a turning point for A24. They have their horror movie roots and their kind of their indie film roots. They got their fanboys with Joe over there and Steve to another extent. But Joe, you just give off those A24 vibes. I'm sorry. Not sorry. And with Uncut Gems, they were able to get that kind of prestige as well with with Adam Sandler and a lot of other cases that I'm sure make an exception. But this really does, because it's, as Steve said, it's kind of like it's the multiverse of madness. It's their equivalent to something that is big, action packed, and feels like a summer blockbuster. I don't think it was, but it feels like one. And where A24, and it seems like they're getting validated by that, which is great, because even when I don't like their movies, I still I still respect you, A24.
That's
there are a lot of directors I have that relationship with, where it's like, Richard Linklater, maybe I didn't like, I forget, it's like the one movie here, but
Boyhood.
Maybe I didn't like that movie by you, but you still made School of Rock, or no, but like you still have a vision that I like in your stuff.
Okay. I can forgive him for Where'd You Go, Bernadette.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I was gonna say I can't think of a bad movie by Richard Linklater.
And the Newton Boys are the only two.
And to have a force like A24 in the industry, and we don't want to simp too hard blindly, but as the record has proven, just to have a force like that in the industry, really getting its just due in our opinion. Is really cool to see, especially when you have things like Disney and this Disney and more Disney, and the other big studios lording over things and just making a mess out of so many movies and franchises and actors and whatever. It's just cool to see it validated. It's this is the feel good story. Let's have this for now, until it all goes to shit. No, but it's. I need to watch this movie. I really want to watch it. This is, I can't wait to go back and look at Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange, and be like, yeah, why'd you do this right? Like Chip and Dale, like, yeah, Space Jam, why'd you do that right? Why'd you do that? Why don't you be like your cousin over here? But anyway.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it when you do see it. I wouldn't even mind if we get a slow week in August or something. By then, it'll be on streaming or something, even doing a re-review and stuff, because I feel bad. That's a one review, like, looking back now that you weren't present for, like, that was the one where it's like, man, we really do need Dom on that one. That's the one I do feel bad that you missed.
Title of the stream: A24 Simps review everything all at once twice.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I'm not an A24. I'm not an A24 simp. Yeah, I can't reach it here, but my triple A24 card over here. Don't ask me how to use AAA. I don't know thing one, but I got my triple A24. I'll call them. I'll call them when I break down.
I got my tax season. Yeah, my tax season magazine from A24 about this movie.
It's so good. That's so good. That zine or whatever they call them, whatever. They're good. That's good stuff.
But Dom, I'm glad you mentioned, like, even like, not that this was the case, because I did really enjoy this movie. I think Steve and I both gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars. But like, you are right when it comes to A24, where it's like, even when you don't like something by them. And I met people who didn't like the movie. They did say, I mean, I haven't seen anything like that before, though. So at least I could say that. And I could say the same exact shit about Men. And I was just like, you know what? Wasn't that crazy about the movie? But that's the last 20 minutes, I've never seen that done in film.
It counts for something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We would have had some division with Men had we reviewed that one. We would have had definitely some division
just
with
like
them.
Real men.
Just like real
men. Just like real men, indeed. Indeed. That's going to be our show today. Next week, we've got the Bob's Burgers movie, because you know what? Like, I'm already getting really fatigued, and I haven't even seen it yet. I'm seeing it tomorrow. I'm already getting really fatigued by sort of like the filleting of Top Gun Maverick so much. So I want to zig as opposed to zag. And the other thing is too, is I feel obligated somewhat to review Bob's Burgers, especially on this show. Because I don't know about you guys, I have seen that goddamn trailer probably 24 times, and I'm not exaggerating because it's been delayed twice. I have seen that trailer so much. I can quote the friggin' thing. It's almost as bad as the AMC promo with how bad I can quote that thing. But we're going to tackle that next week. That comes out tomorrow, technically, along with Top Gun Maverick. We're still undecided kind of about what we're going to see June 3rd. Because I know, because also I'm kind of getting worried that Crimes of the Future is not going to come out by me. I'm kind of getting a little nervous because my AMC stub still doesn't have showtimes for it 2 weeks out. And that's making me a little nervous here. But we shall see on that. And I think Dom will lose his friggin' lunch to that movie, too. So I'm also worried about that as well. Because that thing looks gnarly. That thing looks gnarly of a movie. But that's our show today. A really good show at that. We'll be back next week to review the Bob's Burgers movie. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day, too. Hopefully you got a 3-day weekend in store. I know I do, and I think you gentlemen do, too, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, looking forward to a nice 3-day weekend with Memorial Day on the horizon. This is Sleepless with Steve, though. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, whether he's a human or a furry, no matter, we love him anyway. He makes this show run very smoothly. And yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.